Hi everyone, welcome to today's online mentorship section. And we're waiting for our guest to join us. So we'll be giving her a few minutes. Once she's in, then we'll start proper in a couple of minutes, a couple of seconds. Sorry. Hi sis, can you hear me? Like I can't see you. I can't see any column to be able to add you. Like I don't understand what's going on. I don't understand what's going on. I'm not seeing add. This is so frustrating, man. Finally.
Finally, oh, I can hear you.
Ah, God. Like, if you don't see the way I'm sweating inside this place.
Well,
My God. Ah, sis, thank you so much for your patience, so, and thank you for agreeing to do this with me.
you're welcome.
Let
Oh,
me, please give me 2 seconds. Let me let people know where we are.
okay.
Hi everyone, welcome back, and I'm really sorry for all the delay. Like, I don't think I've ever struggled like this to do anything. You have struggled, and I'm hot. I'm hot, but God forbid that I need this section. It's not possible. Devil is a liar. Devil is a bastard. We must do this section today, and I'm sure it's really going to bless someone because our guest is someone I really trust, and she's a very serious human rights activist, and she's been doing this for some time now. She's been doing this for almost, for a very long time, and I've known her for a couple of years. Like, I'm really excited that she agreed to do this with me because she's someone that I really, really respect. Like, she's someone I really respect, and I'm really excited, to be honest. And I was really surprised when I just asked her to join and she just agreed. Like, it felt like God answered one big prayer for me, to be honest. We've not spoken for like, I was calculating it today, it's almost 15 years, if it's not even more than 15 years. And I just reached out and she just agreed. So for me, it really means a lot and I'm very, very grateful. So we've already waited a lot of time. Like, this is almost 40 minutes gone already. And again, I'm really, really sorry. I really After this session, I'm going to do product life class by myself. I'm going to learn it and I'm going to really unravel how to go around it. So first of all, this is Sisters Ally Foundation, and like you already know, this section is our July online mentorship section. And a lot of people really wanted to join, but this network issue and every other thing we had to struggle with has made it difficult for them. So this month we are talking about the Nigerian woman and the law. You want to know because we've had a couple of sections since March this year, and we've had a couple of people come online to mentor people online, to mentor our audience online about certain sectors of life, right? And but this particular month, we want to talk about what the legal system, the Nigerian legal system has for the Nigerian woman. So are we swimming against the tide? That's what we want to know today. Or is the legal system really for the woman? Yeah, so that's basically it. The Nigerian woman and the law, her rights, privileges, and limitations. So our guest is here already, and would allow her to introduce herself. Let us know who she is, what she does, and everything in between. Yeah. Sis, over to you.
Okay. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Chinelo Augustine Okeke. I'm a legal practitioner and a farmer. That's Farming is like my second hobby, and I also do it for a living too. And that's also because my profession allows that. As a lawyer, the legal profession is a very jealous one. There are limits to what you can do outside the profession. So farming is one of the things we're allowed to do, and I do that a lot. Um, I don't know if it's necessary, but I'm from Anambra State, Uri, in Anocha local government area of Anambra State. That's where I'm from. I was born in Ebonyi State. I can say I've lived, apart from the school days, I've lived my life basically in Ebonyi State, and that's where I practice my own legal profession too. But on today's topic on Nigerian woman and the law, I saw another question that talks about rights, privileges, and all that. And in truth, there is no specific law for a Nigerian woman, and there is no special privilege for being a woman. Our constitution is encompassing. Encompassing makes use of any person. A person can be a man or a woman. So there is no limit to what you as a woman can do because the constitution has given you that freedom. The problem I see is not with the law. We have enough laws that cater for the needs of women and children because in truth, there is no specific provision for a man in all the chapters in the constitution. There is none. What reference to a person, it could be anybody, meaning that you could be anything you want to be so long as you are in this country, Nigeria. Nothing limits you. The law is that free. And in a way, I think also the Violence Against Persons Prohibition Act also was in favor of the woman, sort of, but it's still for everybody. It's not, it's about person. Person could be a man, a woman, a child, anybody. So the laws are open for everybody. What limits us as women most of the time is religion and tradition, and not actually the law. A lot of us believe what we want to believe. We believe in what our religious leaders tell us or what we feel is the doctrine in the church. We do that and limit ourselves and turn around to look as if the law will come and help us one way or the other. It's all about what we believe in. Again, is our tradition. These are the things that limit us and not the law. Because the tradition we don't see women who are part of the Igwe in council. The selection is usually with the main folks. In church, is now in some churches now that we get women who are ministers, elders, and all that. The trend before, it is a man's thing. It is men who are the elders, they are the ones who are the priests, they are the ones who are the pastors and all that. And you find that most time the things they tell us, may not actually be as the Bible said it, but as it suits them as men. We believe them because, yes, it is our faith, it is our doctrine. We believe in it.
Okay.
The same goes with tradition. Women are not among the Igwe in council. They are not part of the Igwe's cabinet. Neither are they title holders, apart from this law and all that they give us. So you find out that in such places, they say somebody has committed a crime. I was having an argument with somebody someday, and he said, in his place, if a woman commits adultery, she will go mad. That is part of the tradition. And I'm like, okay, what happens to the man that will commit that she commits the adultery with? He said the law is only on a woman. The question is, who made these laws? Go and check the people that made the laws. They are mostly men. And that is why they did not think a man should be punished for committing adultery. So these are the limitations. And we know we are all coming from a place. You know, they will tell you, when you are in Rome, behave like the Romans. We are all coming from a place, and we're not going to throw it away. And that is why education is important. And that is why enlightenment is also very, very important. The law
Okay.
is perfect as it is. Somebody is even saying amend the constitution. For me, we can only amend to maybe what works in other places. But as it is now, we are free. A lot of women are not participating in politics. Why? Maybe because they don't have the 100 million to buy the forms. Finance is a problem. But will you blame that finance on a man? You cannot. Because we now have women who are controlling millions and dollars, millions of naira. Women who are making waves in all forms of life, in every space of life, business and what have you. So it's a question of what the person wants. If the person is so rich to go into politics, nothing is hindering her. She will buy the form as others have bought and contest, and maybe ask her fellow women to join her. If she can put the support of majority of, and thank God we are the majority. There's no how a woman cannot be a president, a governor, or anything she wants to be, because the constitution did not limit us. But the problem is that
Okay.
most time we blame it on, I don't have money, a man must give me this, a man must give me that. And that also goes to a right of a woman in marriage.
Okay. Let me say
Most
something.
okay.
I wanted to cut you short there because, like, let's start from the beginning, right?
Mm,
Let's start from education.
mm,
Okay. Um, the law, from what I understand, allows mandatory basic education, free mandatory basic education for
yes.
every child, right? So, but we all know it's not free. We all know it's not free, right? And same talking from experience, and I also had to invite some of my friends who are also in the NGO space, especially people who work within the educational sector. And we know that one of the things we struggle with the most is this finance thing. This thing is supposed to be free and like for every child, but kids still are made to make payments like registration fee. They are made to make payments like what is it called? They're made to make payments like some even pay for IGR fees now, exam fee, handouts, handwork fee, and what have you, right? So, and it's looking like each state is doing what they want to do. Each state government is doing what they want to do. Yeah, so my question now, because I know that in the local communities, why I want to bring in the girl child now is that my local in the local communities where we work in, when these bills become too much for some of these parents, they tend to decide to make a decision. Okay, who do we give preference to? And it's always the male children. Why? Because a girl can get married at any moment and leave. So they give preference to the male children because now they have to make a decision. Who do we pay for and who do we not pay for? And then you find out that these girls end up maybe at home and not going to school, or as worse, getting pregnant, or getting married early. So now my question is, what role can parents play here? or these NGOs that try to help these girls, what role can they play to make sure that the state government sticks to what the federal government has said that should be done? Because we know that the fund is made available. The federal government, they pay for these things. They say they the money, right? But people are still compelled to, because of course there's nothing in quotes that people can do about it. So, but as someone in the legal space, what do you recommend that parents in places like this do? People in the NGO sector who really want to help, what do you suggest they do to make sure that what the provision the law makes is being upheld?
Okay, thank you very, very much. I can remember very well when we were in primary school, there's what we call PTA meetings, Parent Teachers Association. I think most schools still have it today. And it's not particular to private schools then, because I know even people in government schools also have it. That body is supposed to enable parents aid their view of what they feel about some fees and all that. The problem we have in this country is that we have a lot of people who are weak in mind. Now that we all know this is the basic provisions, and you get to a school and somebody is saying pay, some other person will say, no, I don't have the money, I'm not going to pay, it is free. But you find out that why that argument is still going on, some other person will come and say how much is the money, and the person pays. Making the other person who is trying to assert a right look like a fool. But I think we should revitalize the PTA forum in schools. Whenever fees are to be paid, or whenever things demands are to be made of the students, their parents should be able to be called to a meeting to have this discussed with. Now, what we can do to hold the government accountable, the truth is that Chapter 2 of the Constitution made these things basic needs, which the government at all levels are supposed to provide. What NGOs should do is this. You can take up a class action, you can go to court. But the question is, how many persons are willing to sustain it till the end? It's not a question of filing a suit in court and abandoning it, but seeing that it gets to the end and you get what you want from the suit. It's not something you do and abandon. And I tell you for free, the question most times is not really with the government. The question is with most people, the people who are at the last unit of that strength. They are always a problem. It's possible the government will release the money, but maybe some other person who may be a principal, or maybe one HOD in one department that has to do with education, maybe the person sitting on it. Apart from releasing funds, or apart from holding government accountable, NGOs can also monitor these projects. You can go to the office of that particular commissioner or whosoever. Please, we know that so fund has been released. Can we track it and know where it is at the moment? Under the Freedom of Information Act, you are entitled to have that information. Nothing stops you from getting that kind of information. Because if we query these things most times, the issues are not always with government. It's usually with people who are supposed to implement this at the grassroots that are usually the problem. And that is why tracking is important. We need to track these monies that are being approved and allocated, and make sure that it gets to the people it's supposed to get to.
Yeah.
Education, yes. I know there was a time in Ebony when it was very, very free. People were not paying anything. And a lot of people got educated. How that system stopped is what I am yet to understand. What went wrong is what I'm yet to understand. But it's because somebody somewhere ate money and got away with it. And other people felt maybe if we cash in on this, we also make money from it. And that is why it is the way it is now. In all, tracking is very, very important. And PTA meetings should be taken very seriously. We find out that most parents too, even when they call for these meetings in school, they don't attend. Only for them to come back and complain, or maybe stay in their house and start complaining when their children are asked to pay. If we want to hold government accountable, it is not something we do from the comfort of our homes. We have to also come out and face things the way they are.
Yeah.
And at every point, we should be able to provide, we should have a guard against ourselves. parents whose children are in the same school should have a forum where they discuss the welfare of that apart from the school, so that when the school is telling you what is not obtainable, you can as a body say no, we cannot do this. I tell you for free, if every parents refuse to pay all this, pay this and pay that as being demanded in all these government schools, it will stop. But you find out that some other person, even while others are agitating, will say I will pay. Another person say I saw my child, the people who feel they have it, and it becomes a burden on people who don't have. Then on the issue of having to choose between a male child and a girl child who should go to school,
Yeah, I wanted
well,
to also ask you something now because
okay.
sorry, I know that uh so it doesn't look like we're just speaking something else. So according to the Compulsory Free Universal Basic Education Act 2004, so section 2, I think subsection 1 says that every government in Nigeria shall provide free, compulsory and universal basic education for every child of primary and junior secondary school age. All right, so I want you to now explain to us, please. Does this child include the girl child? Because some people is looking like they have to choose who is more important and who is not important.
Like I have said earlier, the laws of Nigeria are very, very sufficient in itself. When you talk about a child includes a boy and a girl. It does not have to do with a male child or you can only classify them as male child and female child. But child has to do with both the female gender and the male gender. So both the male and the female are all children if you are under the age of 18. So
Okay.
free and compulsory education as provided is encompassing. Both the girl child and the male child are entitled to it. It is not of exclusive reserve of any male child or anything. Everybody is entitled, both girl and male, to benefit from it. But it I
Okay.
was driving to is with respect to
Yeah.
choosing between a male child and a girl child, which one to send to school. I
Yeah.
think as a parent, that shouldn't be an option. And if you're a parent and you are hearing me and you still think it is an option to choose between any of your children to school to send to school, I think you're making a terrible mistake. Yes, government is entitled to it's a demand of the government to provide basic education. But I think as a parent, you owe it to your child to train him or her.
Okay.
Whatever the government
Yeah.
brings should be a bonus.
Yeah.
But I think you owe every child that came out from your loins at least that little, no matter what it will
Yeah.
take.
Yeah. Education
Yes,
is
because
basic.
it is basic both for government and for parents. And if you
Yeah.
know you are not willing to even train a child, please make some considerations when you want to bring them into this world, or try bringing them when you are ready.
Yeah.
Because I tell you, yes, if you look at that act, it's just that I'm not holding brief for the government. I am not holding brief for the government. But if you look at the provision of that law, these children are not made to pay tuition fee, are they? And that is the free education being talked about. They're not paying tuition fee. I have not heard that a tuition fee is demanded from any of the government schools. But we know, yes, it is not basically free. Pay for textbook, pay for this, pay for that.
Ideas.
Exactly. Yeah, all these small, small things. But the provision, government can be very, very smart. The main provision of that act is being complied with because nobody is demanding school fees per se from any child. And unless if I don't know how it is being done, I just have to be frank with you. I don't go to the government primary schools and secondary schools to find out what really goes there. But
All
I
those
don't think any child, any
registration fee and other things.
exactly, like things like registration fee and all that, you should hold that principal responsible.
Yeah.
because I'm sure the government did not ask him or her to collect that kind of money. Education, the fee, teach my child, teach English, teach maths, nobody pays for it. And that is the education being talked about. You find that somehow there is a full compliance to that provision of the act. But like I keep saying, the problem usually is not with, because teachers are being paid their salary. They are being paid their salary. And that is why the children are not asked to pay tuition fee, so that you won't say we are raising money to pay your teachers. No, that issue of paying teachers has been taken care of by the government. All they need to do is to provide that education, teach them what they ought to know at each level. That's what they are demanded of. But you find out that most of them want to make gain. They will complain that the money is not enough. The principal will sit there, collect registration fee, tell you to bring more, bring broom, bring all manner of things. Though she doesn't submit those things to any government office. Most of these things go to her private house, or go she may, if she want to be nice, share to some of the teachers. So you find out that it is not the government, because government has not asked the child to pay school fees and all that. But the point being made is this: we should be able to take up these things, challenge it very soon. Like, I think now that we are talking about it, we can start it by September. Registrations will start and all that. New students will come into schools and all that. We will visit some of these schools and demand where all this broom, mop, cutlass, where all those things they take, registration money, which office they submit it to, and reasons why it is done. If we are satisfied by our finding, then we will know whether the government is at fault or some other person is somewhere projecting these things.
Yeah. Okay, so there was something you mentioned.
Mm.
There's something you mentioned about making considerations when you want to have your kids, right? Someone asked a question that relates to that. So I have two
Mm.
questions in that respect. So first of all, my own question is this: we've had cases, right, of girls who really want to go to school or want to learn a skill, but because their parents are unable to further their education, maybe to pay for school fees or whatnot, someone comes to ask for their hand in marriage. Some of these girls are 16, some are 17 or even 18, right? And they don't have a say, basically. They don't really have a say, and then they end up getting married. So I know that those ones who are 18, according to the law, can get married, right? But
Yes.
what do you have to say about making a girl get married against her will, because you cannot afford to train them in school, right? So what does the law, what's the implication of this for the person who is coming to marry the girl, and for the parents who is giving them out in marriage? What's the legal implication for that? And then secondly, Paradise is asking on reproductive rights, that what is the stand of the law on abortion for women who are mentally unstable to go through with their pregnancy.
Okay.
So because you know we are talking about being able to raise your children. So someone who is mentally unstable might not be fit to do that. So does the law give any provision for things like abortion for people in that case?
Okay. Thank you very, very much. I think I will start with the first segment that I talked about marrying of underage children. Marriages in Nigeria is governed by the Marriage Act
Okay.
and the Matrimonial Causes Act. And for there to be a valid marriage, there must be consent. The both parties must consent. Now, under the Child Rights Act, a child is incapable of giving consent. And what it means is this: if you marry a child, that marriage is void. Void in the sense that because the requirement of marriage has not been fulfilled, which is consent, what you have is a void marriage. I say this because, yes, most parents, out of desperation, we want to give out their child in marriage. And maybe the child on her own part, we feel I have to do this for my family, maybe to alleviate their pain and all that. But what you are under is unknown to law.
Yeah.
The problem is that who will challenge it at that point? Nobody will challenge it at that point, because yes, the parents have acquiesced to it. The child may not know her left from her right, might not even know that what she's doing, she's not expected under the law to do so. And maybe by the time maybe people will be saying it and all that, imagine somebody who married at the age of 17, for instance, and maybe your NGO is getting to know about it at the age of 18. At that time, if she says, no, I don't want it to be voided because maybe I'm enjoying my marriage, or I'm okay where I am, there's little or nothing you can do, because at the time the issue is being raised, she's already an adult and she can think for herself. But if it is something that we followed up from at the time when she's about to be given out in marriage, no reasonable institution will conduct or celebrate their marriage for them, because at that age she's incapable of giving consent, and without her consent there cannot be a valid marriage. I am not aware for now of any criminal law or any punishment with respect to an adult who marries a child. But I know that a child is incapable of contracting marriage. I think when I was trying to do my research this afternoon, I think it's in India or somewhere that there is a provision for that, where somebody can be punished and made to pay a fine of so and so rats or something. I don't know. I think I read something like that. But the law develops every day. We hope and believe that someday these things will be fully criminalized. Yes, the Violence Against Persons Prohibition Act provides something similar. But how many of us are willing to test that law? Because the question is, assuming you even file a criminal case against such perpetrator, against such parents, or against such adults who want to contract a marriage with a child, will the child be free to come and give evidence in court? Because she's maybe still at that age, she still fears her parents. She may not want to do anything that will harm her parents or something. And even if you say, let me take her out of that place, does the government have adequate facilities where she can be protected pending while? Because yes, we know it is all bad, but there are some extent we can go. We can't take the laws into our own hands. Within the period we are subjecting these things to legal tests, what becomes her fate? Where will she stay? Who takes care of her feeding? Who takes care of her general well-being?
Yeah.
These are the impediments. Yes, we know the law. We know what the law said. A child is incapable of contracting a marriage. But making sure that the due process or the legal process does not have a clog to it is another thing. That's where the issues are most of the time. And you say, okay, because we have had cases where we say, especially in rape cases or defilement cases, the matter will be in court. You find out that the person somebody somewhere will come and settle with the parents. And when you start calling them, they'll start telling you one thing or the other. And as a prosecutor, you can't even do such a case without evidence. Our problem most times is really fundamental. Most times we do this, like now, this session is on Facebook. The man who is likely to give out his child in marriage, an underage child in marriage, is not on Facebook. He's not even hearing us.
Yeah.
So we find out that even people who need this lecture may not get it because they can't afford the means through which they can get it. grassroots grassroots enlightenment is very, very, very important. I urge all NGOs, it is not enough to be on television and say one thing or the other. A lot of
Yeah.
people don't have televisions in their houses, so they're not even hearing you. We need to walk the talk. Go down to these villages, organize talks, organize seminars for people who need this. Now, we're not even saying, yes, you have a problem. I want my child to go out, but the backlash is enormous. What that child is going to go through in life, even you as a parent, you will weep that you took that kind of decision on her behalf, on her behalf. There is this story, there is this incident that happened recently. A man,
Please continue. I'm here.
okay, a man, he said he's an elder in a church, and the child is I think she said she sent the child to school somewhere in Ipo, and somehow she got pregnant. But because he was scared of how his church people will look at him, or how, I don't know, he can't stand the child bringing that kind of disgrace to him. So he had to force the boy to not really force. He promised to sponsor the marriage, sponsor everything. So according to him, from his house, he arranged for the wedding, paid for all the payables and all that and all that. All what the boy did was just to stand as a statue and just marry the child. Eventually they had that first child. The boy wasn't doing anything for a living, so it was very, very difficult for them to feed. Now feeding was a problem. According to the father too, from his own house, he was still sending food and feeding them. They were like that till the girl got pregnant again, gave birth to the second child, and abuse now set in. Invariably, this guy never loved the girl. It was just maybe they had fun and it ended up with pregnancy. He started maltreating the girl. In fact, the reason they came to court was that he beat her and hung her on the ceiling fan. And the day the father came to court, at one point he started weeping because the girl was somehow loose. Like, you can't even control her, even as a magistrate or as a judge. She will shout, talk, do. When somebody has suppressed abuse for so long, the little freedom she got, she feels she can talk and air her view or speak up for herself without minding I am in court. Everybody was trying to calm her down because each time she wants to tell her story, she gets angry and she keeps talking, cursing the boy and all that and all that. And judicial proceeding is not known for cause. We are not there to cause. Give your evidence so that issues will be looked. But she was not comported enough because somehow the thing has really damaged her mentally. At the point, the father said nobody should blame her child because at a point the magistrate got angry and was trying to say, what is wrong with you? If you cannot comport yourself, I have to send you to prison so that at least your head can calm down for some time. And the father at that point, because it was obvious that if you don't punish her, she won't stop. The father started begging. That was how he told that story of how he financed the wedding, did a lot of things and all that and all that and all that and all that and all that. And everybody was like, why? This girl could have been anything. You let her make a mistake and repeat the same mistake all over again.
And
Because it would have
this is
just
the kind
ended.
of case you see every day.
Exactly. It would
You
have
see
just
it
ended
every day.
in that one pregnancy. And maybe you as her father could be able to take care of that one. But no, you didn't stop. You want to save your image as a father. You want to save your image in front of your church member as an elder. And you push this girl. She had 5 children. And the reason why it became so obvious that the father got tired of sending things, buying provisions, making provision for, he got tired because the finances were not forthcoming anymore. That was how they now started speaking up. And the guy, you have fed her almost all through his life. So take your responsibility. All he does is come and donate sperm. They'll go and give birth for him. You people know how to train the children however you want to do it. And upon that, he was abusing the child because he feels the parents will not let her come back to the house because, yes, their own image is still at stake. So let her, she will, whatever I do to her in this marriage, she will remain because even her parents want it by fire, by force. You see, that kind of thing. So that is why I keep telling parents, you see, there are people whose children are making them proud. Yes, Ebere, you that is hosting this program, your parents are super proud of you. If you have been pushed to an early marriage, before you will find your foot again, it may have taken decades. Maybe when you are 40 or maybe when you are 50. And at that time, the world may not be able to enjoy all these talents you're enjoying right now. Because yes, once family setting, you owe it to your child to also devote time to them and all that. There are limits to things you can do at that moment. But at least you have made a name for yourself at this point. That's because nobody pushed you to go and do something against your will or create a burden for you when you can't carry it.
Yeah.
What I am saying is this: Facebook enlightenment is good, but a lot of people who need this advice, they are not here.
You're not here.
They're
Yeah.
not here. And they're not
Yeah.
benefiting from it. And that is why we will still
Yeah.
see tomorrow. Somebody will make the same mistake. And we'll be like, this thing that we have said and said and said and said over again. He did not hear. And that is the gospel truth. He did not hear. There
Yeah,
are some places you will, okay?
before we started this section, I was actually saying something. I was saying that when we started the NGO 2 years ago, we were not doing anything online. We're not doing anything online because our target beneficiaries are not online. We know, right? So, but it was this year after we had the first online section in March this year, we realized that a couple of people actually benefited from it. So we decided, okay, why don't we also do something? Because there are people online who are confused, who don't even know their left from their right. Yeah, so that was why we decided to start having these conversations once a month online, so that people who are also following what we are doing, it won't just be seeing pictures of beneficiaries that we are working with, yeah, at the grassroots. They can also get to learn one or two things. You understand? So like now, me, I was even thinking, okay, that there's a law, maybe there's a punishment for people who and give out their children early. It has to be something. But just like we've mentioned now, there's really nothing directly pointing to a punishment per se that people like that have to go through. So we see that okay, that now is actually like a gap. It's a
No,
gap and
there,
something.
there, there is. Under the Violence Against Persons Prohibition Act, or let me say law, Ebonyi State law, there is. As a parent, you are supposed to provide necessaries for your children. And that necessary includes education. They call it economic deprivation and all that. And you are liable to an option of fine, I think 400,000 naira or imprisonment for 2 years. There is a punishment, because Violence Against Persons Act, also like the child law, covered children within the age of 18. So so long as a child is under the age of 18, the Violence Against Persons Prohibition law expect that you as a parent, you should provide necessaries for that child, and any default there is, you should be liable to an imprisonment. I'm not certain about the number of years of imprisonment and the option of fine, but I know there's an option of fine and there's an imprisonment attached to it.
Okay, okay,
The
okay.
problem
All
now
right.
we
That's
have is this: you will find out that now, who determines the age of the child? For instance, you may say, this man, you gave out your child, you gave your child out underage, and you said no, she's not underage though, she's 20 years or so. And maybe there's no birth certificate, because when you get that kind of thing, most of the children are giving birth to at home and all that. So information about their birth usually is about what their parents tells you, or what their parents told them, that this is their age. You find out that most time it is not documented in any hospital or in the National Population Commission and all that. There is a law, and I keep saying it, the laws are sufficient. Even if we dig further, we will find it out. But if you are, because for you to even be saying giving a child out in marriage, you have to also say that the marriage is voidable. or that the marriage is void, and give grounds upon which it is void. It is after you have proved that that marriage is void that whatever criminal implications that has to do with it comes in. I don't know if
Yeah.
you get my point, because
Yeah.
you have to really, we have to first of all determine that this is a child before we know, because we find out that there are people who are 19 but look 15. There are people who are 15 that look 20. So this thing you take, that's why I started with the marriage act per se. But the VAP law covers it, because once you have a child, you can't say the reason why I'm giving my child out in marriage is because I can't provide for her. The VAP law expects you to provide for that child.
Yeah.
And when you
Okay.
fail to do so, you are criminally liable.
Okay.
So this
So what do you
idea
have
of
to
I'm
say?
giving my child out,
Okay. What do you have to say about this thing that Paradise asked, about people who are mentally unstable who got pregnant, especially
yes,
girls? Yeah, especially young girls.
there's what we call social welfare. That
Okay.
social welfare is supposed to be a department under the Ministry of Women Affairs. In fact, that's where
Okay.
we have it in most states. Social welfare is supposed to take care of things like this. They are supposed to have a shelter home for people
Okay.
like this. And that is why I say budget tracking is very, very important. Most times when bills are passed, if you check, you'll see that there are provisions made for these things, social welfare, shelter home, and all that. But the problem is that nobody is tracking it to know where is the shelter home, who are the people in the shelter home, social welfare, who are under your custody and all that. There are actually people who are supposed to take care of persons like that. And if they give birth and can't take care of the child, those children are supposed to stay in at the shelter home and being taken care of by the government.
So, but every form of abortion is illegal in Nigeria, right?
Yes,
Illegal, whether the person is
yes.
mentally stable or unstable.
There's nothing preventing an unstable person from giving birth to a child. The hormones that control childbearing is certainly different from the one that has to do with mental issue.
Okay.
But the question
Okay.
should be who takes care of that person
The child,
at
yeah.
that time, or who takes care of the child thereafter.
Okay.
I don't know if you get my
There's,
point.
yeah, yeah, I get your point. There's a question I want to ask, because you mentioned a couple of times that the law is all sufficient, right? Um, I know about the Sharia law, and I also know about the cultural laws that we have in our communities, like you mentioned the tradition and other things. And what do you have to say about, because we've had cases of women getting rejected by house owners because they are single, telling them they can't give them a flat or a space to rent in their house because they are single, or women who are not allowed to own lands and properties just because they are women, or even people who are not allowed to inherit, right? Maybe a widow who has just lost her husband, or a girl who is not allowed to inherit the father's property. So, we've said we know that the law have made provisions, right? Like you said, the law doesn't distinguish male or female, right? So, but what does the law have to say in this sense, especially with regards to Sharia laws and cultural laws? Yeah, so can someone go to court, for instance, to contend with something the Sharia law says, or to contend with something the cultural law has said, for example? So, what does the law have to say? What's the provision of the law?
Well, thank you for asking that question. I think somehow you answered the question, because people have gone to court already on the issue of
Okay.
Igbo culture, for instance, that said a girl is not supposed to inherit from her father's estate and all that. Those things have been taken care of by the law. There is a judgment, Okeke versus Mweke. It was contended up to the Supreme Court. And these issues
Wow.
has been raised to like rest. A girl child can inherit from her father, from her mother, can inherit from her parents, and a widow can inherit also her husband property, with or without children. It does not matter whether she has a child for her husband, so long as she's the widow of that child, he can inherit. And that is why there is the Wills Act. If you don't want what the Constitution had said to hold, you have the right to make a will. But if you decide not to make a will, no homeowner or no cultural whatever should come and dictate who owns who, what. Because the children are expected to inherit from their parents.
What about Sharia law?
Now, the issue of Sharia law, for you to challenge it, for you to challenge it, you should also show that you are not under that law, that you are, I don't know how, like now, what is applicable in the East is not the same as what is applicable in the North. And that is why they
Okay,
use penal
let me
code.
say something. With this thing you said, I was thinking the national law should be able to guide the entire nation. So why do we have
Yes,
division?
there are division in it because Sharia is a law of its own, which people under the Islamic belief are under. Just like we Christians, and that's why when I started talking about Christianity and what it does to limiting the laws. You find out that most times when we have issues, especially in marriages, what our Christian faith says about it is different from what is obtainable in our laws. And some of us will say, because I'm a Christian, I will do this. The same way somebody who is under the Sharia law will say, this is the law. And because I'm under it, I will submit myself. Because no matter how you want to say, freedom of religion is also allowed. You cannot dictate for somebody how to worship him, his or her God, or what to believe in. So that right is already there for Muslims. They have that, they made that choice by themselves. Now the law has also accommodated their law, because you're trying to say there should be a central law. Yes, there is a central law. We have the Criminal Act and we have the Penal Code. We also have the Criminal Code for state laws and all that. But each of us are guided by what is obtainable in our locality. I think even under that, the Sharia law too, there are provisions for all these child marriages and all that and all that. But the problem is enforcement and all that. They also have it in their own law. That law is meant to protect people under that Islamic faith. So me as a Christian now, I cannot be saying what is wrong with the law because I am not under it. Or I cannot stay here and condemn what is obtainable there, because the person who is under that law has a choice and he chose it. And me interfering with that person's right of freedom of worship.
Okay, so does it
I
does it
don't
mean that Christians who are in those northern states that practice Sharia law are not bound by the law? They are not bound by the Sharia law.
the
I mean,
Sharia
are
law
you saying that?
is for ask your question.
Yeah, are you saying that Christians who are under the Sharia, who are under those states that use the Sharia law are not bound by the Sharia law?
Of course, they are not bound by the Sharia law,
Oh, okay.
because Sharia law is basically for people who are under the Muslim faith.
Okay. Okay.
Like the punishment, like if you're a Muslim and you take alcohol or you drink, I've not read it. I just have to be honest. I did not take time to read the Sharia law because I know I am not under it, and I am not. I don't know how to put it. I can say, let me just say, I have no need for it because where I stay, it is not obtainable. I am in the East, and my faith I'm not bound by it. I'm a Christian. Because I think the few I have read, if you're a Muslim and you do this and you do this, then punishment for it is there. Do you understand? Christians who are, that is why I say Sharia law is for people under the Islamic faith. But in the north, there's what we call penal code. The penal code is the same as criminal code down here. Penal code is different from Sharia law. So if you're a Christian and you are in the north and you commit any crime in the north, you'll be tried under the penal code. But if you're a Muslim and you commit any, you contravene any of the provisions of the Sharia law, you will be accordingly punished based on that law. And they have Sharia courts too, just like they have regular courts too in the north. Those regular courts will decide the fate of a Christian who commits a crime in the north, but under the penal code.
Oh, okay.
While
Okay,
if it
it
is
makes
done here,
sense now. Yeah,
while
it
if
makes
it
sense.
is done here, you'll be tried under the criminal code.
Okay, okay.
Do you understand?
Yeah,
So
it
if you are
makes
in the
sense.
north and you're a Christian, if you commit crime there, you'll be tried under the penal code.
Okay.
And if it happens down here in the east or anywhere in the south, like in the south, you'll be tried under the criminal code. But if you are a Muslim and you contravene any of the provisions of the Sharia law, you will be tried under the Sharia law
Wow, okay.
because that
Makes
is your
sense.
faith. So
Yeah, makes
that's the way
sense.
it works.
Makes sense. Okay, we're rounding off now because we've taken a very long time and this has really been very, very enlightening. So why do you think people, let's say rape victims, abused persons, victims of exploitation, like we mentioned now, this thing you said, when when you said who will follow the case to the end, is not opening up the case and abandoning it. So why do you think people shy away from taking legal actions or hiring a lawyer?
The point is a lot of people are selfish. One. A lot of people are weak, are faint-hearted. Let me put it that way. Now, like I was trying to give an example. We have had cases of rape cases that are in court. At the end of the day, the parents of the child will go and collect money from maybe the culprit. Do you understand? And you now start calling them, come and give evidence. They will be full dragging. You're not the one that was raped. Somebody needs to come and say. And the next thing they'll tell you that the girl has traveled to maybe from Ebony, he has gone to Anambra, or from Anambra, he has gone to Lagos or somewhere. And you find out that things are like that. The point is that people actually really need to believe how the system works. A lot of people feel like there was this thing somebody told me one day. A woman said that her friend was raped in her house. Armed robbers came to their house, and it was just the man and his wife. Oh. At a point, they told the woman to follow them. And after some time, she came back. They robbed their house and they left. The time they asked the woman to come out, they raped her. She came back, she didn't tell her husband. The husband reported that issue of
The robbery.
he reported the issue of robbery, but didn't know about the rape. But she confided in her friend and told her that, so these people raped me and all that and all that. And all that. I think the friend took her to hospital. They did some check and all that. All these things unknown to her husband. And after some time, the friend was now telling me that I was now asking me, what should they do that I think she's trying to say that the woman is suspecting somebody in the neighborhood to be the person that did it, but that she wants to save her face. She didn't want the issue of rape to come up and all that and people will now be looking at her somehow. And like she didn't want to tell her husband because she didn't know how her husband will look at her and what his reaction will be thereafter and all that. Yes, what she said in the real sense, it made sense. You know, she doesn't know how her husband will react. Fine. She doesn't want people to look at her. Is not that woman that was raped and all that and all that and all that and all that. But I told her one thing: you have not done yourself any good by not telling your husband, because these things come with some pressure. They come with depression. Within this period, these things happen. You will definitely be out of character. You will act funny, and your husband will somehow begin to suspect that something is wrong.
Yeah.
So why not saving the trauma, saving the stress, and telling what is going on? At the end of the day, what she even feared about her husband was not even true. Because when the man got to hear about what happened to her, he became more committed to the cause. He was ready to get justice for his wife, no matter how it will come. You know, most times most people shy away from legal proceedings because of how society will look at them. But I tell you for free, a lot of people will look at you to be the strongest there is, because not all will be strong-hearted to face their how do I call it? How do I put it now? What do I
Their
call it?
fears, you know.
Exactly. And we also, as members of the public, we need to be fair to most of these victims of sexual abuse. I have had cause to go to a police station one day. A girl complained that she was raped. She didn't tell me the real story. I think she told somebody else, but the person was indisposed to come with her to the police station. So the person just called me to go, that the girl was already there. At the time I got there, she was already before the IPO. And the IPO was like, but you slept with this guy before. You slept with this one before. You've been sleeping, you've been sleeping, you've been sleeping, you've been sleeping, you've been sleeping. At a point, the girl lost weight. Even me, when I came, I was shocked. Because yes, she slept with this. She admitted that I slept with this person. At some other point, you slept with this. I said, so how are you saying that you were raped now? You've been sleeping with this same guy. In fact, the way the story was going, she even became the accused in the process. Like she was even the one that raped the guy. The way the whole thing was going. Even me that came there at a point, I was shocked. I was like, really?
Yeah.
But rape is rape.
Yeah.
It does not matter if she had had sex 200 times before. The question is, at that point, this one in issue, was it with her consent? Especially when you are not her husband. Because as it stands now, there's nothing like spousal rape.
Are you
There's nothing like
serious?
spousal rape. There's nothing like spousal rape. There's nothing
This
like
one is
spousal
real.
rape.
We used to think that
There's
there's
nothing like
there's something like
there's nothing like spousal rape. We just hope that
so
someday
if
it it will
what if the
it
lady
will
doesn't give her consent? Maybe she's tired, she's sick, or that kind of thing. She's not willing at that time.
if she's not willing at that time, it can be a class of abuse. You can tell me she's being abused, but you cannot say she has
But
been raped,
you
because
can't call
the
it
reason why she
categorically rape.
is rape, because the reason why she got into the marriage in the first place is to be having sex and maybe be having children. So I don't know if you get my point. Yes, a lot
Yeah,
of people, we know a lot of women get raped in marriages. It happens,
true.
but
Very true.
we're yet to see it come out clear in our laws that a married man can rape his wife. We're yet to see it.
Wow.
Eh, you
Thank you
you
for not
can
going to
you
be
can
happy to hear this one.
yes, you can categorize it in all manner of abuse. Yes,
Yeah,
because it could be a physical abuse at the end of the day. Because if it
yeah,
is by force and she gets injured, it's an abuse. You have abused her physically. Do you
yeah.
understand? It can be a physical abuse, but you cannot call it rape, because
Wow.
consent to rest is a free. And once you enter marriage, it becomes free. It's open now. That issue of consent, there's nothing holding it. It's free, because that is the essence of the
Wow.
marriage. The reason why we are calling the other one rape is because you didn't marry her. You are not married to her. So on what basis are you taking her by force? Do you understand? But for people who have contracted their marriage and are under that union, that consent is open, because that is actually one of, in fact, the main essential, the main reason why they got into it in the first place. But if a man is not taking advantage of it, it can be
Advantage
an
of it.
abuse. Because if you have
Yeah.
sex and you injure her, there are physical injury. Obviously, you have committed a physical abuse, but not rape, as most people may call it. So, but going back
Wow.
to rape as it were, like in this case, a lot of us have to be disciplined in our mind, especially how we relate to rape victims.
Yeah.
Because yes, for her to be complaining, she's going through a lot. It was not an act she enjoyed. It does not matter if she had sex 200 times or 1 million times. No. The essence, the main reason it is called rape is because there is lack of consent and there is penetration. And that is why I keep telling people, whatever you are doing with the other sex or the opposite sex, make sure you have his or her consent all the way. Yes, that we are kissing does not mean that you can come and enter. No, no, no. That we're even romancing and smooshing. There was a day I was having an argument with a man. He said, you don't understand what a man goes through if he's already in the mood and you come and say, I'm not doing again. You know, that at that point, with the force, he can even rape you.
Yeah.
The law knows about all these things and still made provision. And thank God, I'm sure when we go to take census at the National Assembly, when this law is being made, majority of the people who sat in that panel are men. And they
Men.
also have this water, this rain, this blood that is running through your vein that want to make you push over. They all feel it at the time they made these laws. You know.
Is there
So
water
I
and
think
rain?
the public should be fair to these rape victims, because I
Yeah.
think the legal system is okay. You can give your evidence in camera. You don't need to give your evidence, especially when it has to do with a child. You don't need to give the evidence in the open court. So there's nothing to
Wow.
be afraid of. Just submit yourself to the judicial process. And
Yeah,
police,
I
I
like
think,
this one you just said now about giving your evidence in camera. Because a lot of people might,
exactly.
maybe one of the reasons why people are also afraid of taking the legal action is,
Mm,
getting hurt at the end of the day, or somebody telling them and killing them. Like when you were
mm,
talking about tracking, I know that
mm.
especially in this our state, a lot of people are afraid. They don't want to get killed at the end of the day. They don't want their family members getting harmed because they want to fight for justice. So, but when you know that you can actually do these things secretly and nobody even know you're the one doing it, it makes sense. It makes sense.
Exactly. Like, I agree with you, but most times we find out that those things we fear are not even there.
They are non-existent here.
They are not even there. It's just that people somewhere say, if you do this, they will kill you. If you do the other one, or they will kill you. Do you have a proof of who has been killed? You know, they say, don't come and say this thing on Facebook. Oh. But I know some people who are still writing on Facebook, they are alive and they're walking the streets. So where are we actually even getting this information from? The point is that we need to man up. If we want things to work in this country, a lot of people need to put away their fears and face reality. If you walk
So what
into
do you what
any government office and demand for anything, nobody will kill you there, because they know that before you came in, about one or two persons out there knew you were coming. I
yeah.
don't know if you get. So for me, I find it very difficult to believe such a thing. Yeah, yes, we have to be careful. Nobody should die for nothing. I keep saying it. So nobody should die for nothing. But most times, what we fear is not even there. It's not even there.
Okay.
It's not even there.
So my final question is
Mm.
how expensive is it for someone to get a lawyer in Nigeria? And
Hmm.
when you said something, and we are talking about why people run away from taking legal action. Some people will
Mm.
tell you when you hire a lawyer, the money you want to go and get at the end of the day, you finish paying everything to the lawyer. At the end of the day,
Mm.
you yourself, you will be owing somebody. you know. And I'm really trying to address those issues that are making people scared, or or fighting for justice, fighting for their rights. Because it's one thing to know this thing, and it's another thing to actually take action with regards to that. So how expensive is it? And are there lawyers in the social sector? Do you have lawyers who are in the social sector who offer free legal services to maybe victims of injustice who are unable to afford these things? And where can we find them? And then again, if there are maybe young lawyers, someone who just finished law school or something like that, that wants to do that kind of thing, how can the person get in contact with an organization like that?
Okay, thank you very much. I know that you see, like I said, tracking is Ministry of Justice. Ministry of Justice are various departments that are expected to handle, especially crimes, free of charge. You're not supposed to pay for anything. And Ministry of Justice is in every state of the Federation. That is why I said, you see the law as it is. Our law is perfect. The problem is usually implementation. The problem is implementation.
Ah, wow, wow. It actually feels so good to get to learn all these things and to know that there's nothing really wrong, sorry, with our law. It's giving me some degree of comfort to know that I can walk into the Ministry of Justice and demand justice for myself. Although I know that, of course, the system of, not just, it's not system now, it's people. With the kind of people we have, some persons might try to frustrate one or two things that you want to do. Of course, we have people like that in every sector, not just the legal system. But it's now left for us, just like our guest said, to see it to the end, especially when someone doesn't have the money to pay for the legal support. So I don't know what's happening. I don't know why she had to get kicked out of the section. Like this has really been an eye opener. I've gotten to learn a lot of things I didn't know before, a lot, and I'm very grateful you're going to be putting this out there. This might not really help a lot of people now, but I know that in the near future, someone might need to know what to do, might need insights into how to go about a particular situation that has to do with maybe abuse, and is asking questions and trying to find solutions to one or two problems that they were struggling with. And I'm really grateful that our guest has touched literally everything that we had for her today. And I'm going to add something to what she said about the Ministry of Justice. I know that you can also walk into human rights office. You can walk into any human rights office. We have the National Human Rights, and we have National Human Rights. And there's another organization that I can't really remember the name at the moment, but I also know we have FIDA, the International Federation of Women Lawyers, who fight for mostly women abuse and child rights cases, and they do it for free. These are lawyer organizations that they can take up your case and see to the end, as long as you're willing to go the ride with them. Yeah, so you can go to Ministry of Justice and find them. You can also just Google FIDA, FIDA. They are there. They are in every state, and also National Human Rights as well. National Human Rights can even link you up to other organizations, and then there are NGOs as well that fight for it. So you don't have any excuse not to seek for justice for yourself and for your loved ones. Our guest looks like she's not coming back on, but that is actually the end of our section for today. and it's really been an amazing one. Again, we are really sorry. We are ending this by almost 5 p.m. We're supposed to start by 3 p.m., but we couldn't start because of all the glitches, network, and the platform we wanted to use. Thank you very much to everyone who showed up for this session. It's always a pleasure to have you join us, and we'll see you again next month for an even more exciting section. Like next month is going to be so exciting because we'll be celebrating the International Youth Day, and we're hosting a couple of people on the platform, just like we did in March this year. So we'll have a panel, not just one guest, and it's going to be mind blowing. It's going to be educating, entertaining, and it's going to be a complete eye opener. Yeah. So until then, we'll see you again, and thank you for coming. Bye.